this afternoon. Let me get to my guest, State Representative Rob Roberson, who's chairman of education, in the news yesterday. And boy, what a day yesterday, sir. Good morning to you.
Good morning. It's good to be here. I had to swim to get here.
You seem relaxed on the video this morning. It's just, you're laid back and everything seems to be a little copacetic. Are you just tired from yesterday?
I'm a little tired from yesterday, and frankly, I didn't get a whole lot of sleep last night.
No, I know.
It was pretty messy.
Here's the deal. We'll give. I gave myself an extra mulligan. I'll give you two. So if you make some mistakes in there, we'll just throw those out because of no sleep, and certainly yesterday. What time did you guys finish yesterday?
We actually left right around 3 o'clock or so. We've got a lot more on the calendar today that we're going to look at, but I'm not real sure what we're going to do, and I've got a couple of things on the calendar that I need to get dealt with. So we're getting rolling this morning.
Frustrated, Rob?
A little bit. I mean, but the truth is that this is a process, and I'm part of this process, and there's no sense in getting frustrated or aggravated with anybody. The reality is that I truly believe that the House and the Senate both want good things for education, and I have no preconceived notions that there is one person in that Capitol that doesn't want the kids of this state to have the best education that they can. Sometimes we have different positions and different ideas how to get there, and I'm going to certainly work hard to make certain that we come together and make that happen. But the truth is that this is a long session, and I don't know anybody that could spend 4 months with family members in a close-knit family not be upset with each other after 4 months of being stuffed in a spot.
Not without a preacher giving you a marriage license.
You got that right.
Today, the Senate took an act. Here's the statement from your speaker. He said, and our speaker, today the Senate took an active role to deny an increase in more than $250 million to Mississippi's K-12 public education system. The House has been willing and open to work with the Senate on their suggestions to move away from the archaic MAEP formula and build a formula that is equitable, fair, and student-centered. Senate took an extraordinary and unusual step to kill the Inspire Act funding formula prematurely, in addition to killing their own attempt to rectify the issues with the MAEP. I want to ask you inside baseball on this one. Why did they do it this early? I mean, because the process hasn't worked its way out. There was still a possibility to get together in conference, or am I wrong?
I think there's an opportunity to get together in conference still. I'm going to be very much available. I'm going to continue working through. And in the Mississippi legislature, the old joke is nothing's dead until the sign you die. And the reality is that I want to work with the Senate. I want to work with our House members. I want to make certain that we're able to get the best we can get done for our children. My mom and dad used to tell me I was a little impatient when it came to getting things accomplished or done, but I don't know that I'm much better as an adult. But the reality is that we want to do what's best for students, and it's the House position that the Inspire Act does that. And you know, I'm really excited that the Senate came to the table with some ideas on the front end to try to make education better. They're willing to spend the money. I don't think this is a question of who's willing to spend money or who's not willing to spend money. This is a question of how we go about doing it.
Let me play a little bit of yesterday's proceedings on the floor of the Senate.
Senator Barr, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Call up item 20. Have the title read.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 2332, MAEP revised funding formula.
Thank you, Mr. President. My motion is we do not concur, and I'll be recognized to explain.
You're recognized to explain, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the House education bill. Originally it was our MAEP bill that we passed unanimously. The House returned it to us. Based on my research, I just think we don't need to address it during the session, and this is a way to take it off the table. This was something that was not made public to us until deadline day in February. Some of the concerns that we've looked at regarding the Inspire bill is there have been 4 or 5 iterations of the charts that show how much each district will get. And so I directed or asked our LBL staff, Max, prepare us a chart. And there are some districts that do well, and there are a vast majority that don't do well over a 10-year period.
All right. A fair concern, if that is accurate, when you guys in the House gave numbers, and they happen to be, an assortment of different numbers.
The other concerns I had...
I want to let you answer that one first of all.
Well, I'm not real sure what number.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Hold on, I'm having difficulties. All right, let's see if we can... that's all right. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm not real sure what numbers are different. I mean, we did have an updated version of the numbers that appeared, but this is the legislative process. Frankly, we have updated numbers that are constantly coming in. I think that sometimes whenever you're looking for a reason to kick things down the road a little bit, you come up with lots of different ways of.
So you don't think that's valid as far as the numbers? In other words, the percentages were the same, but the numbers vacillated because of what? I mean, if you're figuring out a budget has to have some substance where it doesn't vacillate that much.
No, and there wasn't that much difference in the numbers that we're talking about here. The reality is, though, whenever you've got whenever you're trying to do a prep 10 years out, I'm not real sure how in the world you're going to do that based on unknowns. And we didn't do that with much of any other of the funding sources and things that we've done. So I don't want to suggest in any way, shape, or form that Senator Barr doesn't have some good points, and these are points that we could work ourselves out through. But on the same token, I mean, to think that we're going to be able to figure out what MAAP or what Inspire would look like 10 years from now would do it, to assume to know how many, what all the information would be.
Mr. Chairman, here is a question that I think a lot of people ask, and I was thinking about this morning, because we always hear about the MAEP. And is it a vehicle, almost like a spreadsheet that every school uses? In other words, they go by this, here's the funding, and everything's been used. Without that, they would have no idea what they're going to get or anything else. What part of MAEP, and you can answer this when you come back, what parts of MAEP are used now? Or is any of it used? Does anybody care in Carrollton County or Calhoun what MAEP is, other than I want some more money, I need some more money? What part of this is vital if we change it? And what part is that's been because some of it's been totally ignored on the part that's not fully funded. So it's just a question that I don't know a lot of people ask, and we'll get back with that and more. State Representative Rob Roberson, Chairman of Education, and also the Lieutenant Governor's press release. Those need to be rubber boots this morning, though, by the way. Back to the Speaker of the House's press release yesterday. Mississippi public school children will be directly impacted by the Senate's lack of willingness to engage in the debate to address the current broken and flawed formula. By refusing to have meaningful discussions on this issue and enter into the conference phase of a legislative process, the Senate has moved to preserve the status quo, which will result in less funds to public schools and inadequate distribution in an unfair and inequitable manner. I got to ask you, when we went out, is other than the funding formula, what else is the guideline for schools across the state from MAEP? Is that basically it? It's just the formula of funding?
The MAEP, it is the formula, but here's the thing. There's not a principal or superintendent sitting around looking at that formula trying to figure out what they're going to get. I know some very smart people, and that formula, as it stands today, is very difficult to figure out. And to suggest that you're dealing with unknowns, my goodness, the unknowns that exist with dealing with that from a standpoint of a local superintendent, principal, teacher, trying to figure out what you're going to get from year to year, it's not a fair assessment. The Inspire Act is a heck of a lot better at trying to give us a little bit more certainty as to what it looks like. No one is sitting around looking at the formula as it stands now and says, hey, we're going to understand what we're going to get from year to year,
Yeah.
unless you look at it from a historical standpoint. And the reality is that historical standpoint, that it's probably not going to be that much different from year to year.
Did you guys? Well, how do you answer the question? You guys just sprung this on them in February.
I don't think we sprung anything on anybody. I mean, this is the legislative process. We know that whenever you come in January, you're going to be dealing with these things. It's the largest budget in the state. I would think that you would know you're going to be dealing with numbers and the way we approach these things. And there's been conversation over the last 2 to 5 years over and over again about changing this. I would have loved for the Senate to have had a proposal that we could have, kind of combined both directions and gotten some weigh in from both sides.
That's a good question. When did, after they had Inspire in their hands, when did they come up and also in February and have an alternate plan, or how long was it before they had an alternate plan?
The plan that
You are probably.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The plan that they came up with was basically a taking your current MAEP formula and change it a little bit and bring it to the table, and I guess what they would call it was an update. My position is that MAEP, and the House position is that MAEP has outused its usefulness. It's time to move on. And anytime you take a sacred cow and take it out and say it's time to retire you, you're going to have pushback, and I understand that. I certainly don't want to be disrespectful to those that put the time and energy into that plan years and years ago. But let's be honest, it's only been funded twice. Yep. If it's working so well, why are we still sitting with the formula only being funded twice?
As Speaker of the House, I have clearly communicated with the Senate leadership, that would be the Lieutenant Governor and the rest of the House position, that we have funded MAEP for the last time. As we near the end of the legislative session, the House will continue to look for ways to fund education with a student-centered formula. So what does that mean? Who's the loser if we have to punt this to a study committee in the summer?
I don't think there's going to, well, first of all, I don't think that we're going to have necessarily a study committee. I think that we're going to have a committee come together and actually get something done. That's my hope.
Well, what, you talking about before summer or what?
Well, either way, I'm good if we're able to get something done before the end of this session, with moving us forward. I'm also good with if we have to do a special session. And my hope is it would be a special session soon.
Here's the head scratcher, and a lot of people are asking this. What is it with the Senate that they want to keep the words MAEP on here? Because it doesn't bode them well as far as a branding for the Republicans in the state of Mississippi.
I don't know. I do know that Senator Barr is very deliberative in how he approaches things. I know that the Lieutenant Governor he's a numbers guy. I think that there may, be some truth to the fact that they just didn't get their numbers together and feel comfortable with them. I'm a little bit more aggressive when it comes to these things because I know that this Inspire program is going to help children with disabilities. And that's a big issue for me. That's one of the reasons Inspire is I'm so passionate about it, because it's gonna help our school districts and encourage our school districts to do IEPs that we're not getting done now.
A little more from the floor from Dennis DeBar yesterday.
The other concerns I had is the fact that we're addressing or dumping a lump sum. Basically, Inspire tries to address certain needs, ELL, special needs, gifted. We dump a lump sum into districts, so how do we ensure the districts spend that money where it's required that we want it to go? There's no accountability for that. And so those are a couple of concerns I've had.
Wow. That's like not trusting the people. I can understand that with the way some things have gone wrong in the state. But my question is, what are they doing now?
Well, that would be a real good question to ask back is what are we doing now? The reality is that we have nothing in place now to make certain that IEPs are getting done. We've got nothing in place to make sure that children, gifted children, it's being spent in that direction. The things that he brings up, they're valid issues, and I certainly do not want to suggest.
Why couldn't they be covered in conference?
Absolutely, it 100% could be covered. I am very much in favor of sitting down with him and the Senate, and let's come up with some solutions for these things. I'm begging them. I'm telling you right now, if I got a phone call in the middle of this interview and they said, hey, we want to meet back at the Capitol, we want to work some of this stuff out, I'm there.
Let me give you a little bit more. I think I got a couple more cuts from
The other concern is, I think this has come up in the past, way before most of our time. Maybe Senator Bryan can address, understands that in the past, when this was brought up, districts would inflate some of their numbers, saying they had more special needs children or ELL children, and that would lead to obviously issues of, fraud and things of that nature. And so over a 10-year period, I just was concerned the districts would lose, some of the districts would lose money. Wasn't sure about the numbers.
All right. So basically, the chairman of the Senate has said in the past, principals, I guess superintendents and teachers, maybe parents, are committing fraud in juicing the numbers up. And how do we prevent that? The question again is twofold. How are we doing it now? And what is the plan the Senate would put together, whether they started it for a day or a summer, to stop that?
Every issue he brings up, they're valid issues, and I certainly would not suggest to you that they're not things that we don't need to discuss. However, to your point, we're not really doing anything different with the MEP formula currently, and I would argue that I would much rather us go and seek out the children with special needs and make certain that those children are getting taken care of than to be counting these kids, because here's the problem with where we're at right now. There is zero incentive for school districts to go out here and find these children that need the help. None. There's zero. And with the way the Inspire Act works, is there is an incentive to go find them because you're going to get more money to help those children. So I would much rather put my money into a place where I know that we're going to get coverage and I know that we're going to have kids out there that we can take care of.
The chairman of education in the House of Representatives, Lloyd Roberson, but I would think that there are some consequences, legal consequences already embedded in these services if a parent or a superintendent or somebody falsifies information. Is it free and clear, or are there consequences?
Oh no, there's always an audit process and things like that. If you catch somebody breaking the law, we're going to be able to punish those people if they're breaking the law. And I don't think he's trying to conflate that to the degree that I think sometimes a little bit of politics gets mixed in with this, and you're just trying to.
So if he has a suggestion how to prevent those last two things that we were talking about, you would be open to putting that in the bill?
Oh yes, sir.
To an amendment.
Yes, sir.
All right, final cut here from yesterday's action.
That's why I think it's important that we pass on it this year, address it over the summer, come back next year with a plan that's vetted by the Department of Education, outside groups, the Education Committee in the House and the Senate, and others. Nothing will change with MEP regarding the formula. And we have our position, the House has their position.
Okay, we're ready for your motion, Senator.
Motion is do not concur.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. Thank you, Senator DeBar.
I do want to ask you this. You said it's not dead. It still has a life if you guys come together in the House and Senate on this one with just a phone call. The other part of this, which seems to me a little like Joe Biden's student loans, all of a sudden these dollars start rolling in here from the Senate, and I haven't seen some of these before. I'm not sure you guys have. An extra pay raise for the teachers, IHL, public community colleges, that doesn't say public employees in here, but a lot of other money thrown around, and was that off guard? We'll ask when we return. Chairman Rob Roberson from District 43, Octomah, Winston County. As far as our Lane Kiffin and Mr. Chestnut Joey, who's going to be at the spring game, 662 said, my boy can eat 50 eggs. Really? We need to, Mr. Chairman, we need to find out who that guy is and place a few bets on him then. So.
That's a lot of eggs.
Yeah, 50 eggs. Now, can he eat them in 8 minutes, whatever the allotted time is on that one? All right, let me get back to this. Were you privy to the information as far as the additional dollars that they were talking about in this little lagniappe if they did the MAEP in the bill that they put together? Speak to that.
The first time I saw it was when it was released, probably about the same time you saw it. Mm-hmm. I'm not real sure whether or not that is something that they had been discussing for some time. We had not heard anything about that on the House side. The only pay increases that I've been involved with this year has been the SOs and the Highway Patrol, and we've had a discussion about some community college raises and things like that. But the issue of a pay increase. But now, let's be clear. I mean, we're talking it's about $80 a month that the average teacher, that's before taxes, that would get. I don't know that that's necessarily to I guess, take out part of the playbook that I've seen over the last couple of months is that, this was kind of dropped on us. I'd like to see, what this looks like. Are we talking about this being every year? If I'm going to be in favor of a pay increase, I want to make certain that we're going to do this in the future as well. The
reason I said this is because one of the objections from the chairman DeBar and some others were this is a sizable portion of the state's tax dollars, so let's make sure we got our numbers right. Then all of a sudden they come up and take some money. And let me be clear on this one, that this is not part of the MAEP formula. This was an addition. They saying we're also, I think the words were from the Lieutenant Governor of Mississippi Senate proposed legislation, which would provide an additional $206 million to schools across the state. Now, was that inclusive in the rewrite, or was this additional somewhere else? Because one of the things a lot of us scratch our heads with, and one of the reasons we need to kick MAEP out and start over, is that we have no idea how you put money into this fund or not. It's just like you got somebody who's paying into it, but you don't get to count that as part of the total. I mean, we saw, and I use as an example, the overflow from the lottery, $80 million plus, the first that goes to MDOT, which badly needs it. And that's another story out there. But anything over $80 million, and it's been in the tens of millions that go to MAEP, or actually go to education, but it's not counted toward the formula.
If I were a little bit cynical, I would think maybe this was something to take the heat off of the fact that we're not looking at Inspire. That's what it would certainly look like. Mm-hmm. I think that the heart's in the right place on the Senate side. I think they do want to have conversations about pay increases for teachers. I'm wondering why it happened 3 weeks before the end of session to have that conversation.
Well, did he come to you guys in the form of a bill that was dropped in the hopper at the beginning, or is it just something you guys are learning? And from what I hear from the chairman of education in the House, this is just something that was dropped in there as lagniappe that you just hear about.
That's a fair assessment.
The Senate is also committed to raising community college and university personnel. Does this mean the professors, I would guess, and some of the others?
Yes,
$50 million?
Yes, sir. There's been conversations about getting the a pay increase for the community colleges, and they need it. There's no doubt.
Has there been talk about the university level at IHL? I mean, as far as IHL, I haven't heard much about that.
But there's been conversations in the budget side of it. So the reality is there have been conversations. There have been no conversations about this additional teacher increase, and I don't know that they necessarily would want this, especially if we're going to replace the conversation with that as opposed to Inspire.
The House Bill 1823 is the education appropriation bill, which includes an additional $206 million toward education, is what the Lieutenant Governor said. If adopted, the historic appropriation would almost fully fund the current funding formula, which is about $251 million. That's his explanation on House Bill 1823. Not sure whose bill that is.
Our bill, Inspire, had $250 million more dollars to suggest that and here's the distinct difference here. The MAEP formula, the reason I am so opposed to the MAEP formula the way it currently sits is that the districts that need the money aren't getting it. The districts that have a tax base are getting more than their fair share of that dollar. What we're attempting to do is make certain that the poor districts, the ones with the lower tax base, are giving more money. That's the reality, and that's why this is so important. It's not about whose bill gets passed. This is not about that. This is about making certain.
Can you give me an example? Just give me an example. In other words, when we start talking about well-funded tax bases, certainly places like Madison County and some of the other places across the state of DeSoto County, and a lot of us in the entire Jackson metro area for the most part, great tax base. When you move that into the Delta counties and some of the rural areas, the tax base is anemic. The schools don't have enough money to operate in most cases. However, I do think that the superintendents are being paid a lot more than they deserve in some cases with small enrollments, and that's another story. And then they should be more efficient.
Paul,
that's the problem, though, isn't it?
That's part of the problem, but keep this in mind. Mississippi pays about 75%. I'm using round numbers here, but we pay about 75% of public education. There's a reason for that. We're a poor state. You have poor districts that wouldn't have a school had we not done it the way we've done it. Here's the problem with that, the fly in the ointment, so to speak, is that when you have a district like Madison or like another area, and I hate to pick on Madison, but like Madison, they have a tax base that will cover them entirely and make certain that they're covered. Whenever you have a district in the Delta, and I won't point out a particular place, but a poor area, their tax base is so low that they would never be able to get a school. And the way we're doing the current formula with MAEP is those children, those kids, just because of the zip code that they live in, are not getting the fair shake that I believe they deserve. And we can do better. We can do better than that. It's almost like the argument whenever you look at your children and you determine that there's something that one of your children need and the other children don't do it, and then you decide to give all of them the same amount of money, and it doesn't make sense.
Well, there's a medicine for that, and it would be called school choice, especially in the areas where schools are failing or they don't have enough money to operate, along with combining these schools and consolidation. And I think we've done some of that as far as districts are concerned, but do you think more of that needs to happen?
We're going to have to look at consolidation as a remedy to a lot of these problems. I mean, when you've got a district that only has 500 kids in it, and you're trying to run it doesn't make sense at all. And it's in one county. A lot of these have two school districts of 500 and 500. We need to combine these two districts and make it better. And those are some of the things that hopefully I was hoping that we would be able to talk through this summer, not the Inspire bill.
You know, as fellow Mississippians here, if we weren't on the microphone, we would say things like, come on, you guys know this. You got 500 people out here. You're there doing all this crap, mostly for your employees and the principal and everybody else. And you got people you hire, most of them somebody you know, they're voting for you. And this is a political situation that's eaten up. And who suffers at the end of it? The kids.
Absolutely.
And we're not going to do what we're supposed to be doing because it's so politically hard, so we'll kick it to the next generation.
Mississippi, what's so funny is we're a very conservative state, but the funny thing is that we love our government, especially whenever it's our government. Whenever we talk about shutting something down, it's never in our own backyard. It's somewhere else. We have got to do better at that.
The scariest thing in the world, having the absolute privilege of watching this formation over the years go from total domination from 140 years for Democrat control. They built it. They did the blueprint. They built a foundation. They managed it and everything else. Everything we have in our personality and our laws and our Constitution, Democrats have formed. And there were some bad traits there. And then we have Republicans take over, and the scariest thing in the world is they're beginning to act, some cases, like Democrats, and that is scary. Final thoughts, sir.
The message I would send to the Senate today is I'm available. I would love to sit down and talk about how we move forward with a good plan. If we need to have discussions about some of the issues that were brought up, I am more than capable and able to come up with some solutions that we can agree on, and stay safe out there everybody that's out on the road.
Maybe you guys could take in a hopper some different names, and everybody would be a little ownership of it and draw it out of a box or something. I hate to sound like elementary days, but it's push and shove under the Capitol.
I'm all in. Let's do it.
Man, thank you for coming in, especially in this weather. And guess what? Look forward to the next time, because you didn't use any of your mulligans.
No, I didn't.
Pretty darn good, yeah.
Thank you.
Don't forget about that nap about 9 o'clock tonight.
That sounds good.